Welcome everybody, we are at Finovate in London and I'm here with Leda Glyptis. She's one of the legends of the fintech ecosystem and also the author of an amazing book, Bankers Like Us. I have to say that basically there was a queue of I don't know how many people, Leda. I think you run out of books.
We did run out of books, which is an amazing feeling, and I'm very sorry for the people that were at the back of the queue, but it was such an amazing feeling to have more demand than supply. It's a good problem to have, right?
And you did also an amazing speech on stage, so congratulations.
Thank you very much. It was a bit of a sneak preview to get interest up, and obviously it worked.
Yeah, that's really nice. I've heard a lot of people saying that your book, it's the book that every banker should have. So what is your feeling about their first reaction? So do they relate what you said? What was their first reaction, the first reaction that you got?
The first reaction was about bloody time. We've been asking you to write a book for a while, which was actually both funny and a very nice feeling. I would say that there's two types of bankers. The people who read it and go, oh my God, yes, I feel the same way. I know this problem, this happened to me, this is familiar, sort of smiling and nodding. And then the people for whom there's still a little bit of residual resistance, not so much not believing that all of this is as it is described, but believing that there are exceptions or extenuating circumstances. And although I've been tackling a lot of these topics in my blogs and my talks over the years, there is something in the long form that allows you to go really into the detail of why actually the excuses we give ourselves don't apply, and the things we could potentially do to move from this slightly cyclical situation we're in, where we keep saying the same things but not moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. And I like one thing that I've read that you wrote about innovation. You said innovation is not a department, innovation should be a mindset. And you know, it's really interesting because many times we see a lot of innovation centers, innovation departments popping up, but then I have the feeling they are all a cover for marketing purposes.
Well, I mean, it's a fair question. I will say I've set up and run innovation departments in a couple of banks. And I believe I speak on behalf of all of my colleagues who did it at the time. We all genuinely believed that what was missing was understanding and learning. So if we created a space in which the bank had the tools and the acceptance to learn and experiment, the rest would fall into place. Yeah. We all believed it. I think none of us believe anymore that that was the only obstacle. I think it's fair, and I say it in the book, that we've shown ourselves as an industry capable of learning. We've actually done quite a lot of learning, but we have found ourselves incapable of taking the following steps at pace. And the innovation departments were fantastic for that first stage, but they're not the right tool for the next step.
So what do you think it's needed to have the organization all on the same pace? It's maybe a managerial decision that has to come from the top. What's that?
It's a couple of things. The first is direction from the top. If the strategies maintain as much of the present as possible, then you will never get creativity flourishing. Yeah. But if the strategy is clear and ambitious, then actually you give people something to work towards and something, you know, when you do OKRs in your team and it's like my work, my team's work, the organization's work, you can't do that without a true strategy. The second piece is stopping, buying my book, and working out the things that hold you back. Because one of the things I talk about at some length in the book is that most of what holds us back is not some sinister conspiracy. Yeah. It's bad habits, is structures that are not fit for purpose, is trying to take something that has a certain shape and certain requirements because it's all about the future and trying to shove it into ways of working that don't belong with it. Yeah. So actually being honest with ourselves about where we are. I have a colleague who always says, if I knew I was going where I'm going, I wouldn't start from here. And I think that's the reality for all of us, that when we realize how not fit for purpose some of our organizational habits are inside big organizations, you have that deflating feeling that, oh my God, there's so much to do. But the reality is that's where you start from. You start from where you are.
And probably it's like a cultural shift, not really a real tech problem or any of that. It's really a cultural thing.
Absolutely not a tech problem. I'll give you a small example that I talk about in my book. Most of us in the industry, actually not even just the bankers, most of us in the industry have back-to-back half-hour meetings, mostly all day.
You don't even have time to think.
You don't have time to think. And a half hour is actually long enough for a check-in, but it's not enough to do strategic thinking. It's not long enough to have a complicated conversation. It's not long enough to think together. So actually, if you're a very senior executive, your day is structured in a way that stops you from making complicated decisions. So if in one meeting you have to review the budget, in the next meeting you have to see a senior client, in the next meeting you have to deal with a disciplinary issue, and in the next meeting you have to deal with your 20-year strategy.
You do the math, yeah.
You do the math, right? So actually, some of the things that hold us back are really mundane. They're not about our data strategy. It's about the fact that we've exhausted our decision makers and they can't think clearly.
Yeah, of course. So you said that then people are the problem.
Yes.
but then I think that also people are the solution then.
100%.
So what's like the top advice you would give, except for buying her book?
Buy the book. So in the book, I would say about half of the book is describing the problem, and it's describing it in detail so that people can actually see that it's not lofty strategy. It's actually a lot of very small things that create a very constraining environment. But then the second half of the book, I'd say it falls in 4 buckets of things that you can do starting immediately if you want to. The first bucket is things you can do as an individual to be a better colleague, to be more mindful of your own creativity at work, but also to create space for others. But these are things you can do as an individual without leading a revolution. Because very often we talk about this work and it's like, well, I don't want to lose my job, right? I don't want to set the building on fire. So how do I do this? So the first bucket is things you can do immediately
right now
that do not endanger your job, they don't jeopardize your position, but they create space for you and yourself. The second is things you can do as a team that are more about widening that space and creating a different dynamic. The next bucket is next level of ambition. What can you do as a leader in an organization? What can you do as an organization? And the last one is, if we think about the art of the possible, there is nothing in financial services or in the economy that is set in stone. So if you actually did the first 3, what's the next level? If we use our digital capabilities, can we not produce financial services institutions where the cost to serve is so low that giving loans to the poor is profitable? You can actually, those decisions are only possible if you've allowed for the first 3 buckets to be made at the right levels. But one of the examples I use in the book is that when I worked in one of the banks, I had to go to the president of the bank for a headset to be signed off. It was back when we didn't have Zoom, right? So it was a skip level thing, and because of where I sat in the air, I had to go to the president for $150.
Yeah, my God, it's unbelievable.
Right, so actually, if we make the right decisions at the right level, we free up the headspace of the people in the right spectrum of control and decision making to transform society. But if I have to go to the top of the house
just
for a $150 headset, then they're definitely not thinking about financial inclusion.
Definitely. Leda, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to have you here. Thank you.